Good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon now. It's just turned 12 o'clock, and well, I've had a couple of bits of correspondence this week. Not an awful lot, I've got to tell you. Um, the first bit of correspondence I had from the discussion board was one from Milja, and that was pretty much a sentence to say that on her unit over in Saudi Arabia, patients are helped to sleep with benzodiazepines. I think she says lorazepam or temazepam. I must have asked the question, how is it that you guarantee that people get sleep? The one thing I'd like you to consider, Milia, is this thought has often occurred to me. I know that when people take a benzodiazepine, such as lorazepam and temazepam, I know that they close their eyes and stay still. But does it ever occur to you to wonder whether or not it is actually sleep that they're undergoing? I mean, sleep is a very delicate um, phenomenon in a person's brain, and I sometimes wonder whether the drugs that we offer people, although they will lie flat and still with their eyes closed, I wonder if it is genuine sleep. You know, it may mimic sleep, but is it really? That doesn't mean to say it's not worthwhile, I mean, just the very act of closing your eyes when it gets dark and opening them again the following morning, that in itself is psychologically comforting. But, I'm not sure you dream. I'm not sure you dream in the same way. I'm not sure you move in the same way in the bed. Is it the same thing at all? I don't know. I don't know. It's just a question I've often asked myself. So, when I worked in an intensive care unit, for instance, if people were kept under sedation with benzodiazepines for a week, when they were brought out of their benzodiazepine sleep, they never struck me as rested somehow. They never struck me as though this is a person who's had a lovely, lovely, restful and reconstructive sleep. They struck me as being people who were pretty much sleep deprived. Actually, that's how they always used to strike me. But that's almost a philosophical point. Uh, the other correspondence that I've had this week is from my friend Salome. Now, hello Salome, how are you? Some really good replies to the questions that I asked. But it was for lesson 6, so we're going back a little bit. Some good replies in the correspondence that you sent me, Salome. And I noticed there that the final questions that I asked you, why is angioplasty not used more in the UK? Well, of course, it is used in the UK more now. That is an old-fashioned question, and it's one of those ones which I've got to get round to editing out soon, because the incidence now of primary angioplasty for MI in Britain is something like 94% in the UK mainland and 99% in Northern Ireland. Now, Salome makes the point that that sometimes angioplasty isn't the real answer for people. Sometimes there's other problems there that you can't really use angioplasty, and that I suppose is true. But in the modern era, we have caught up to the rest of Europe, and that's going to be the first order of treatment that you get. And I've got to say to you that today, the 11th of November, it is exactly 2 years since I had a primary angioplasty myself. So, 3 cheers for the National Health Service. Um, I've had a couple of suggestions for essays so far. We've had one this week. Do calcium supplements increase a person's prospects of having ischemic heart disease? If the process, presumably, if the process of um, if the process of atherosclerosis involves calcification of the walls of the artery, do taking calcium supplements increase the likelihood of that as a problem, or is it entirely irrelevant? Good subject. love it. But I'm wondering if you'll get 3,000 words out of it, to be honest with you. I have every confidence that you will. And the other one is the changing face of coronary care nursing. I need a bit more detail on that, but I can see the way it's going. You know, if patients are being whisked off to tertiary centres, what does this do to the role of the coronary care nurse in district hospitals, for instance? Does this mean that there's no need for coronary care units anymore? I can see the way it might go, but I was a little baffled as to the detail on that. Okay, don't forget, everybody, do not forget that you are writing a pretend essay, for a pretend article for publication. That's what you're doing. You're putting yourself through the discipline of preparing an article for publication. So my advice to you is this: find an article that you like. Doesn't really matter the subject, but find one that's appeared in a journal, and then look at its structure. Do they have an abstract? Do they put down keywords? Is it double spaced? And it always is, by the way, always double spaced. How have they organised their references? How many references have they got? Have they put in headings? How long is their introduction? How long is their conclusion? Do they use tables? Do they use boxes? And if they do, how are they listed? Find an article that you admire. Doesn't really matter the subject. The important thing is the structure, and imitate the structure, putting in your own content. That's how I would do this essay. And then, when you're handing in your work, you say that this is an article which will be aimed at this journal, and you could send me by separate mail, I don't care. The advice for the guidance for authors. Yeah. But pretend that you're writing an article, pretend that you're trying to get an article published. That's the whole idea here. And I'm looking forward to reading them too. So if there's nothing else, I shall speak to you next week. Bye now.